Okay, here we go. Well, hi, everybody. We are Team One, and we read The Brilliant Genius using improv comedy in social work groups. And the premise of the article is that improv and social work groups started at the same time with the same people and in the same place. And they used to be pretty much identical. In fact, those were groups. They were improv groups that were social work groups. And they started in Hull House in Chicago, which is fascinating, I have to say. And a lot of people did groups. It wasn't really identified with social work at the time. And so people did a lot of work with immigrant communities, trade unions, and use them for organizing purposes to help people become more confident. And the whole idea was that they became more effective in the way they talked about how they wanted to see change and how they wanted the world to look when they were improvising. And someone who was really notable at Hull House was a woman named Viola Spolin, who was an actress by trade. And she did these, held these groups and used them mostly with actors to get them to be more confident in the way that they presented themselves. But she also used them with various groups to help them become more confident too. And her son went off to begin Second City, which is fascinating, I have to say, in Chicago. If you guys have heard that before, that's where most Saturday Night Live people come from, and it's a big deal. So why aren't they the same anymore? Because improv is very different from social work groups. And basically, improv became more about comedy, more about performing. And social work groups were emerging at a time where the profession was looking for legitimacy and wanted to become more clinical. And the way that that evolved in groups is that they became more directed towards a goal, like helping incorrigible children learn how to be better behaved, and were less about bringing out the inside feelings of individuals and being about focusing upon their inherent abilities. And it was more about directing them towards a certain goal. And what the article is all about is we don't have to do it that way anymore. We should be based upon supporting the development of the human being. And for that reason, we should start adopting, again, the four principles or the four aspects of improv comedy. On to Michelle.
Okay, so I am going to go over some definitions of terms, and a lot of us know these terms already, but this is kind of more through the lens of improv as a social work group. So the definition of improv comedy, first of all, has anybody seen the show Whose Line Is It Anyway? One of my favorites. I used to love it. Yep. So that's improv. It's basically just where a topic is chosen and members of a group must make up their own plot lines and characters based off of what other group members have said or implied. So this is an activity-based social work group that has the dual purpose of not only aiming to teach its group members to master an activity or skill, but also aims to help its members achieve personal growth goals by using mutual aid. So mutual aid simply means that members help each other. The lessons, there are lessons we can all learn from each other, and activities that require group members to work together for a common goal allows them to be able to benefit and learn from each other. This term is a little new to me. It's called group mind. And group mind just refers to the process the group uses to work cohesively and work toward a common goal. It's the process of being able to play off of each other and having some idea of the ultimate goal. If one or more members doesn't work with the goal or has difficulty helping the scene in a relatively natural way, that's an example of not having a group mind. Active listening. Group members need to hear more than the words that are said by other members. They must also infer additional information in order to see the bigger picture of the storyline. allowing them to know how to continue the scene in a way that flows naturally. As an example, in a scene, one character named Sydney says, "Hey, can you please help me with this? I can't pack all of Dad's bowling trophies by myself." Then another character, Zach, responds with, "I think Dad would have wanted me to spend his time enjoying his collection of cigars. He always preferred it when you did the housework anyway." So this shows that not only did Zach use Sydney's words to formulate a response, but he also helped define some of the character traits of the characters that flow with what Sydney originally said. So while picturing one sibling having to ask for help, he furthered the story by making his character unhelpful and a little rude. Risk-taking. If a group worker notices that the group keeps engaging in nothing but polite and boring scenes, they can assume that there will be little growth within the group. Instead, they will encourage group members to take some risks in their scenes, and these scenes will ultimately be more dynamic and educational for everyone. And finally, individual growth. Through the process of mutual aid, group members can learn to appreciate their individual worth as it relates to others. It is with this held belief that improvisers learn to recognize their individual strengths as well. And Heather.
So now let's put all those terms together. As you can probably imagine, a person doing improv comedy uses all of those skills in an attempt to make people laugh. In an improv social work group, all the skills are used towards the goal of personal growth. Improv social work group, these skills are things such as active listening, taking risks, group mind. These are all used to try to help with the individual with their personal growth. This is achieved by using all of those mutual aid skills. Broken down, this means a group who shares impromptu stories with each other can build bonds, build confidence, and build their courage all through one group activity. Social work, improv groups can also be used as community bonds and social network builders. Through group participation, community members can learn about themselves and their neighbors using laughter and shared experience to learn and understand a little bit more about each other. This prospects in that aspect could be endlessly positive if implemented correctly. In conclusion, improv used in social work has many benefits. Improv and social work share common roots of creation. Their goals of individual growth are the same. The implementation can cost next to nothing, which makes it a benefit to many groups, not just big corporations, but also small community groups. The efforts can affect multiple people at the same time positively. And improv can foster not only a feeling of accomplishment and empowerment within the individual, but also with neighbors and for each other within the group. So we have some questions for you all. Does it sound promising to you to use these improv techniques in group work? Why or why not? Feel free to jump in.
I think it sounds fun. Because you just kind of see what comes up. To be a very natural view into people's thoughts and behaviors and their worlds.
I think growth requires to be like tested a little bit and pushed out of your comfort zone. And I think I've kind of seen that in my practicum a little bit, actually.
The idea of the group thing is so interesting too. Obviously, if you're in a group, you're all going to be going through something similar. obviously we're all bringing our own experiences, what we're going through, what we want to work on, but there's always going to be that common theme that is getting us to the group. So I really appreciate that mention.
Yeah, that's great. You know, when I was reading about this, I was thinking of, say, teen groups in a high school where all the teens could share what if examples. Like, what if we went to a party and this happens, and then somebody else says, oh, and this happens, and then they can build their experience and then see how they would each react. And while they're doing it, they're living that shared experience and they're forming that bond. So it's easier in these kind of groups to form that bond rather than just somebody facilitating the group and saying, now this is what you should think and this is what you should feel. They're all
Yeah.
active participants.
Yeah, I like that the group mind presupposes that people have it within them to become the group as opposed to dictating to them, and that it's a whole lot more honest when it comes from their own thoughts and their own feelings. And that, you know, over a series of years, we've gotten really far away from that, and that one should be looking at how people are motivating themselves, you know, as the primary thing to be monitoring in a group.
Yeah, that's great. Good example. So the next question is, if so, which elements do you feel would be most helpful in these groups? So we had like the group thinking, risk taking, and active listening.
I think risk taking is good because especially just depending on the group, but the groups I work with have very deep trauma. And so that's like practicing trusting people.
A good example. Thank you.
To actually add to what you're talking about, I also work with domestic violence survivors, and it's an opportunity to for them to change the narrative. You know, they can kind of situation, whether or not they're improvising, you know, something along the lines of their actual trauma. It's just cool for them to know that they can kind of write their own story too.
I feel like group mind can be used to set goals and hold each other accountable.
I like the risk taking, just because I think it pushes people to get to places and things where they aren't easily able to go without that push.
Great. Thank you. One other question is, what other support or information would you need to incorporate these elements?
Hmm.
Could I just say the article suggests maybe having an improv comic come to your group, which would be hilarious.
Oh, wow. That's just like a whole new spin. That it would just be so cool. Like if I was sitting in a group and they brought an improv comic, I mean, that would just be a really cool experience.
I think just putting out the improv and making it more well known into like the social work and how it can be beneficial and whatnot.
Having a light agreement or even an MOU, I'm thinking, so I work sometimes on a recovery treatment court, and all our participants always sign when they come into the court, I will do this, I will set my intention here. So you could do something of, I will engage in risk taking, I will be an active listener, I'll engage with group mind, group think.
That's a great idea. Thank you.
Mhm.
All very good. I guess that's all I have.
Okie doke.
Well, good job, guys, and thank you.